وبارك وسلم. اللهم ارزقنا يا ربي فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافيتي يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وفقهنا في الدين وعلم التأويل واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل. اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا وعرفنا بالعلم النافع وأنفسنا وأهلنا وأوطاننا وديارنا وجميع المسلمين يا إله العالمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نويت تعلم وتعليم ومذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحق والمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضات وقرب ثواب سبحانه وتعالى مع الاسم وعفو الرحمة يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما من الشافعين الغني. اللهم إنا نسألك علما من الشافعين الغني. اللهم إنا نسألك علما من صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alright, so من كتاب مقاصد حلقات التعليم ووسائلها للحبيب عمر بن محمد بن سالم بن حفيظ نفعنا به وبعلوم الدار إلى أن قال. Alright, so from the book, the aims and objectives of sacred circles, right, of studying and teaching. Right, so this is written by Habib Omar himself, and it's basically a manual, right, on what is our focus when we teach, right, especially our children, those who are around us. What is the focus, and also how do we reach this focus and the points and the objectives of teaching. Right, so before we continue, right, we should have done this last week but forgot. Right, so we should need to write down our intentions, right, as to why we are learning this book, right? So I'm going to mention a few, right, and then we also intend whatever Habib Omar has intended, right, in writing his book, and we intend whatever Rasulullah has intended in all of his teachings, right? And whenever he teach, what are the ways whereby he teaches, right? So so in reading this book, like, of the intentions, of course the first intention that you should always have when you begin any activity, any reading, any program that you do, right, we intend that we seek the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because nothing matters, right, if it's not done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Only when you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking his pleasure, seeking his rida, seeking his closeness, that it actually matters, right? So alright, so that is the first reason. The second intention that we can have, right, in studying this book is to obey Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to take him as our example, right? Because primarily he is the father of every Muslim, right? Because his wives are the ummahatul mu'minin, they are the mothers of the believers, right? And he is the spiritual father. He's not our biological father, but he's our spiritual father, right? Because through him, all of our ruh, all of our spirits, right, we get developed, we get nurtured, we get brought up, right, by the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he is our ultimate father, right? That he helps us get through life, right? He teaches us how he equips us with the skills, right, to get through this life of this world, so as to succeed in the next world, right? Like how our biological father would equip us with the skills to survive this world, right? He would teach us, bring us to school. He would, prepare us so we can get jobs and work and survive this world. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us all that we needed, right, to survive this world, in sense the entire world, right, until you reach the next world, right? And as mentioned, that is what every parent needs to know, right? That when you prepare your children, because basically when you bring your children up, right, it's not so much that you're bringing them up for no reason, of course, right? You're bringing them up because you want them to be able to survive this world, right? So and survival of this world happens in two ways. It happens in the physical aspect and the spiritual aspect, right? So the physical aspect is what many parents focus on, right? And they forget to look at the spiritual aspect, right? So for a very obvious example would be feeding our children, Right? So many parents, they focus on feeding the child so the child is able to live. Right? You feed the child. Right? But if you are not so concerned with what you feed the child, so anything that you find, any junk that you find, anything that doesn't benefit whatsoever, as long as it makes the child full, you will just put it in the child's mouth. Right? Just so that he will survive. A parent who is more cautious will think, okay, wait, right? I need to give the child something that is nutritious, something that is healthy, something that will benefit the child's body and will not cause harm to the child in the long run, in the future. So that kind of parent, they are more cautious, right? So they don't feed the child, very unhealthy things. They guard the weight of the child, they guard over the health of the child, so that they will not grow up to be unhealthy human beings. Right? Someone who is higher than that, right? She looks at the food and she says, okay, you know what? The food, right, as a believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the food needs to be halal. Right, so you take care of the food, is exactly, there is no haram in the food, there is no shubha. Right, the food that you're giving the child is perfectly halal. If you go higher than that, the food has to be tayyib. Right, the food has to be good. Right, it has to be pure, a pure kind of food. You go higher than that, you see who is the one who is preparing this food. Right, is the one who's preparing this food, does she engage in salawat? Does she, is she someone of sin or maksiat? Right, so you think and you take care of what goes into your child's mouth, because you understand that food will go into the body and it will also go into the iman of this child. Right, so if you don't care about the spiritual aspect of food, then the spiritual nourishment of the child suffers. Right, if you only care about the physical aspect, then you care about the physical aspect. The physical aspect will benefit. But if you neglect the spiritual aspect of food, and food has a lot of spirituality in food, Like food is very spiritual. Right, so they used to very take care of what kind of food that they consume, and they used to take care of what kind of food that their children consume, to the point that like in the time of in Tarim, in Hadramaut, in the past, right, they used to really take care of who is allowed to breastfeed their children. And not just anybody is allowed to breastfeed their children. They will take care and see, the wetness. Is she someone of ibadah? Is she someone of iman, of taqwa, of Quran? Right? And there was a story about a man, right, who in Hadramaut, right, whereby his child was crying, in the house, right, and the milk lady, right, who brings the milk every day to the house, came to the house lah, and she put the milk there. Right, she saw the child crying, and she didn't know like where's the mother and where's the, there was no one there. Right, so she took the child and she breastfed the child to keep the child quiet. Right, and then she put the child back and she went off. So when the mother came, the mother realized the child has been fed, right, by someone, and she has no idea who, like who actually came to feed my child. Right, so the mother told the father that someone came and fed your child, and I don't have no idea who. Right, but the father, being someone so cautious, he was so, he was very careful, right, about what his child ate, because and this child goes up to be a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was so careful that he was like, we need to remove that milk from the child, because you don't know who is the one who came and gave the child milk. We have no idea about her background and what kind of person she is or who he was. Right, so the father actually, and you might think it's something harsh, but he actually took a miswak and he made the child vomit out the milk. Right, and then he fed the child with his own wife's milk. Right, because they're very careful. They're very careful who gives the milk. Right, it has to be someone of uprighteousness. Right, so there is something, when it comes to fathering our children and mothering our children, right, there is a physical aspect, right, that you fulfill, right, and there is a spiritual aspect, whom that not every parent fulfills, right. So, and the one who will ultimately fulfill that aspect is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby he takes people by the hand and he fathers them, right, throughout life. Right, I'm not sure how we actually got into that. How did we get into that? Did I read the first paragraph? Actually, no, I have not read the first paragraph. Yes, intentions. Right, so we intend, in taking this book, right, that we get close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we follow him in his ways, right, and that we intend that our children, right, be of true followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we intend, right, and then we can also intend, right, in this, in us learning this book, that we be the kind of teacher, right, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, the kind of teacher, right, whereby the student admires, the student obeys, the student respects, right, this kind of teacher, and we be a teacher who teaches what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love us to teach. Right, so we intend, because we think about teaching, right, and as mentioned last week, every parent is a teacher whether or not you choose to be. right? You have to teach, right? There's no choice. If you are a parent, you have to teach, and if you don't teach, then the child will the repercussions will happen onto the child, right? There will be difficulties, right, in this child's development. So you have to take it upon yourself to teach your own children, right? So okay, so and of some more intentions, so we just increasing our intentions. So we intend that that in studying this, right, we have fulfilled, right, our children's rights over us, right? Because our children have rights on us, and of the rights by Sayyidina Umar in the hadith, it was us. There was once a man, that came to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu and said to the man, to Sayyidina Umar, that my child, right, he hit me, right? He took a stick and he hit me, right? So Sayyidina Umar called the child and said, how dare you hit your father? And he was a young boy lah. So how dare you hit your father? Like, you have no right to hit your father. And then the child said, for that I have to punish you, right, for hitting your own father. Then the child said, Ya Amirul Mu'minin, right, before you punish me, can I ask you, right, do us children, do we have rights? Is there a haq for us? Do we have our own rights? And Sayyidina Umar said, of course you have rights, right? Everyone has their own rights. So then he asked, Ya Amirul Mu'minin, what are the rights of children? Right? And from this hadith we understand what are the rights of children, right? So the three rights that Sayyidina Umar mentioned, right, in this hadith was that he said that the first right is that you give them, that your parents give you a good name, right? It is their right for you to actually give them a good name. Right? Don't give them some random name because it sounds style-milo or whatsoever. Right? You have to give them a good, proper, beautiful name, right? Because they will be called by their name on the day of judgment, right? And when you give them that name, right, you intend that whosoever was called by this name from the pious, right, they will be like these pious people, and they will be raised with these pious people, right? So of course, if you name your child after a Sahaba, then okay, halas, it's settled, right? Let her be raised by this Sahaba, right? But if you name your child with in accordance to a trait, right, a particular trait, right, then you say, okay, then may she have this trait, right, and this trait to help the entire ummah. So in your naming of the child, you put in as much intention as you can with his naming, right, of the child. So that's the first right. The first right, that you need to give the child a good name, right, a righteous name, right? And the hadith about Rasulullah SAW says that the best of names is Abdul Rahman, Abdul Rahim, right? The Abdul Rahman, right? There's a hadith, right? That he told me. There's a hadith that the best name is Abdul Rahman, right, and Abdul Rahim, right? That is of the best names. And then Rasulullah also said that name your children after the prophets. So okay, all of these all boy names, like not girl names, right? So Abdullah is also one of the best names. Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, Abdul Rahim, right? Abdul of Allah's names, and then names of prophets. So so Muhammad, right, is the best name. All the other prophets, Ahmad is a good name, Mahmud, all Rasul's names, and then you have other prophets, right, like Sayyidina Musa, and Musa very rare in our community. Musa, Isa, right? I mean, it's all nice names that you can give your children, and these are from hadith. Rasul said that Abdul Rahman, Abdul Rahim, Abdullah are good names, and then prophets, and prophets are good names, and the hadith specifically mentioned these two, right, and Abdullah, right? But of course, any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names you can give under Abdul, right? So Abdul Fattah, right? Abdul Fattah, Abdul Rauf, right? Abdul Qadir, right? Abdul Qadir, right? So and if you give that kind of name, then it's best that you use the whole thing, right? So you always call him Abdul Rahman, right? You don't call him Rahman, right? Abdul Rahman. You must say the whole thing, especially Abdul Rahman, because nobody can be called Rahman, and that is not a name that human beings can take. The human beings can take the name Fatah, you can, right? You can take the name Rahim, you also can, right? But Rahman cannot. Rahman is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you must bring the Abdul in front, right? So to show that it's a servant of the most merciful. And so you put in all the intentions when you give these names. That's the first right of the child. Second right of your children, right, is that, and this is Sayyidina Umar telling the man, right, is that you marry a woman who would be a good enough mother, right, to teach your children. So this is from before marriage. Okay, so the right, so when a man goes out to look for a wife, right, it is the right of his future children to actually choose a woman who can teach his children. Right, so he cannot just go by his shahwa and marry whatever beautiful woman that he sees out there, and she doesn't know anything about her religion, right? And in him doing so, he has not fulfilled a right of his children that is yet to come. And so the right even came before they even got married. There was a right for them that you choose the correct mother for them, and because the mother really affects the child. And when you look at cases whereby people divorce or people whatsoever, kan, like if you see if the mother is sound, if the mother is firm, the children come out to be righteous, because the mother really affects the child. If the mother is corrupted, it is difficult on the father. Very difficult on the father to actually bring up good children. It can be done, right? But it really depends. The mother really plays a very strong role, especially in the first 7 years. Right? So if the mother is sound, inshallah they grow up to be sound because the mother is righteous. But the mother is corrupt, even though the father is righteous, it will make it very difficult, right, to bring up righteous children, because the children see the mother more than they see the father, unless she's not in their view that she's away from them. Then the father takes on the role of the mother in this case. So there's a second right of a child that you actually choose for men, that you actually choose a wife who can be a good mother to your children. So when you bring up your own sons, right, let them understand that when you choose a wife, you need to choose someone who is a mother. Don't choose a wife for yourself. Choose a mother for your children. Right? And the same thing for women also. When we choose our husbands, and you teach your children these kind of things, your daughters. When you choose a husband, don't choose a husband for yourself, but choose a father for your children. That is more important, right, for you. Okay. And then the third right of the child, right, is that the father is right on the father, but also the mother. Right, the father teaches him the Quran. That is a child's right. That the father needs to teach the child the Quran. If the father is not able to, then he can get other people to teach his own children, or the mother teaches the child the Quran. But it's a right. So Sayyidina Umar said these 3 rights to this man, and the man said, well, as for the name, right, my father called me dung beetle because I was so black when I was born. Right, so he called me dung beetle. Right, so the father filled in the name lah. The naming, what kind of name is that also? Who would name your child that? Right, my father named me that. As for the mother, right, as for my mother, my father actually married someone of the book who does not know anything about Islam. So she never taught me Islam. Right, so my mother is someone of Ahlul Kitab. Right, so she has no foundation in the religion. Which is also something that when you give da'wah, you tell people, and they want to marry Christians or they want to marry people who are not educated, right? Either you tell them, you get them educated, right? Or your child will be left. Right? The mother will not know how to bring up the child because it's difficult. She herself doesn't know how to bring up the child. Right? So he said that, and the third thing he said, and my father, he never even brought the Quran to me in the first place. Right? All he ever taught me was how to plow the land. That was the only thing that my father ever taught me. Right? And so Umar turned to the father and said that you should be lucky that he didn't crack your head, right? From what you gave him, right? You didn't give him his rights, right? So children have rights, and these are the rights of children. So when we learn this book, right, we intend that in learning this book, we actually give our children their rights over us. They have rights, right? And that we also intend that we don't transgress onto our children. I mean, we don't oppress them, right, in our bad behavior or in our ignorance or in the way we don't know how to bring up children. So sometimes, like parents, they don't know that it is wrong to condemn, right, or it is wrong to always criticize, or it is wrong to actually, it all affects the psychology of the child. Right? It affects the esteem of the child. It affects a lot, about the child. Right? So so and in doing so, they have actually, you would say, menzalimkan the child. You have actually oppressed your own child, right? By continuously saying negative things onto the child. Right? It's actually haram on the parent to do that, right? Because the child grows up completely, the esteem is very low, right? So it's on the parent and on the caregiver, right? So you intend that by learning this book that we want to give our children their rights, right? And we want to educate ourselves on what we cannot do with our children so as not to hurt them unknowingly and not to oppress them unknowingly, that we have oppressed them, right, in some way or other, right? And then other intentions there. So we are still on intentions. Any other intentions you all think about? We're on intentions of learning this book, right? So we intend also to be able to deliver information and knowledge from our heart to the heart of our children. Because knowledge that truly benefits is knowledge that comes into the heart as a light. Right? So it's not that I want to teach them this information that is in their heads. Right? I want the Quran to be taught to them as a light that enters their heart. Right? So you intend that. Right? Even if you don't know how to do it, you have no clue how am I going to do this, right? But you put in your intention. I intend that my teaching of them of the Quran, it is a light that will enter their hearts and illuminate them to the end of their lives. Right? And they will never leave this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you intend that in your interactions with them, right, that you portray the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it will be a light that will guide them through their lives. And as many scholars have mentioned, that if you are really scared for your children in this day and time, you see the kind of fitna that goes around, you see the kind of all these things that is outside there, and you're very scared for your children, the best protection for your children is that you teach them the sunnah, because the sunnah will protect. The sunnah is a light that covers you. Right, so wherever you go, even if you see the worst of things, with your eyes, you see the kind of really dirty pictures and ugly things that are in the open, right? The sunnah, right, will be a protection for them, and they will reject all of these things. Right? They will reject it, and they will not go towards these things. So and you can think of more and more intentions. So I'll pause there, right? About the intentions. You yourself, you go back, you think, right? You bring out as much as you can, and have them to be lofty intentions. You can even go on to say that my child be someone who will be a teacher of others of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That they will go out and they will tell the people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like they will carry this name of Islam high, right? And they will spread Islam wherever they go. Right? So you power the intentions as high as you can, right? So that your children can be people whom Rasulullah will be proud of on the day of judgment, when he said that this is my ummah, this boy is my ummah, this girl, she is my ummah, she is my follower, and he'll be proud of them, right, on the day of judgment. Right? So you masukkan all your niyats. Alright, so I'm going to read the book, right, and then we'll I think we were at Amma Ba'd, right? So at-ta'arifu bil kitab, right? What page are we on? About the book on page 14. Alright. Alhamdulillahi al-amir bil-ilm wa amal wa ta'alim, al-hadi man yasha ila siratin mustaqim, wa sallallahu wa sallama ala habibihi khayri da'in ilayhi ودال عليه بعثه معلما ولمكارم الأخلاق متمما وعلى آله وأهل بيته قرناء القرآن وأصحابه الأئمة الهدى الأعيان وتابعيهم بإحسان. So last week we actually explained this part. Like the the Alhamdulillah and the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is all this, the first part. That's how he began the book. And we mentioned that when these ulama, when they begin their books, they will begin the Alhamdulillah in a way whereby it will be most suitable to the topic that is at hand. Right? That's why he praised Allah for the one who has commanded us to learn and to act and to teach. Right? Because it comes all three: to learn, to act, and to teach. Right? And then he mentioned about Rasulullah, and then he mentioned about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who guides whomsoever he wants on the straight path, and that is a reality of our life. Right? Allah chooses who is guided. And then about Rasulullah, who is the best of those who guide, and the one who was raised as a teacher, right? And the one who perfected noble character. Right? He was raised as a prophet to perfect noble character. And if there's anything, and there's a book I didn't bring. There's a book that inshallah tomorrow I will be using it for my talk at NUS. Right? There is it's a book by Habib Muhammad Al-Haddar. He is the father of Hababa Noor, who is the wife of Habib Omar. So basically he is the father-in-law of Habib Omar, but he is the sheikh of Habib Omar. So he was the sheikh of Habib Omar, and then he proposed his daughter to Habib Omar. Right, so he was the sheikh first, and then he proposed his daughter in marriage to Habib Omar. Right, so he wrote a book, right, in pursuit, right, of excellent character. Right, it's a very beautiful book about character in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, it's one of the subhanallah. It's very clear, the book, and how do you actually arrive at noble character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so amma ba'd. So now we begin. فإن من أهم المهمات في دين الله تعليم الكتاب العزيز وسنة الغراء وأحكام الشريعة المطهرة ونشر القيم ومكارم الأخلاق بين الأمة وتلك أمور تتحقق بعقد خلقات التعليم في مساجد ومنازل في مدن المسلمين وقراهم. وعلى ذلك يترتب حفظ الملة الإسلامية وتوضيح سبلهم وترسيخ قواعدها في قلوب المنتمين إليهم وترتفع ظلمات الجهل والغفلات بنور العلم والذكر والتذكير. فلزم الاعتناء بإقامة تلك الخلقات على وجهها على كل مسلم حريص على دين الله راغب في مرافقة حبيبك ومصطفاه وأهل دائرته من النبيين وورثته الأكرمين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. Alright, so he begins right by mentioning the importance of this matter, the importance of this affair. Right, the translation is in your book, but I will be translating it as I explain it here. Macam I feel so not loud. Can you hear? Alright. So he says to begin this book. So he says of the most important of important things, ahamiyat of the most important priorities in Islam, right, in this religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, the most important thing is to teach the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, the Quran. Right, and the teaching of the Quran, Al-Aziz, the great Quran, right, the magnificent Quran, the powerful Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, the teaching of Quran, there are many aspects to the teaching of Quran. So one aspect is to learn how to read the Quran, and you begin that from a young age for your children, right, and the other aspect is to memorize the Quran, memorize something of the Quran, right, especially for people who are young and for your children. And then the third thing is to understand the Quran. Right, because the point of the Quran is to guide. And if you stop at reading and memorizing, then the Quran is meant to guide. So to understand the Quran. Right, which is why in the past the Muslims, right, it was unheard of for them not to know Arabic. in the past. Right. So but for us, we have come to the present, right, whereby it is more common than not for people not to know the Arabic language. Right, but the teachings can still be taught. Right, the teaching of the Quran can still be taught in other languages, right? So it is actually okay for as long as the teachings are taught. Right, but of course, to understand is better lah. Right? But even if you don't understand Arabic, as long as you are learning the teachings and teaching it to your children and those who are around you, and also of the knowledges of the Quran, right, is that we know that the teaching of the Quran is to teach how do we obey the Quran. Right, so there are 4 things, know how to read. Right, memorization is part of it, right? To understand it, right, is part of it, right? And also to follow it. You need to follow the Quran. So all of this falls under the learning of the Quran or the teaching of the Quran. Right? So if any of this is neglected, then you have neglected learning the Quran. You must know how to follow the Quran as it is and understanding it in the sense of the way it is meant to be understood. Right, by the ulama of the past, by the mufassirun, by the Sahaba, how they taught us how to memorize, how to understand the Quran. Right, so and then to understand what Allah is saying in the Quran, and of the Quran also you have to learn when you learn the Quran. You have to learn some part of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, and it's a very big part because the Quran has to do a lot with the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so to divorce the Quran from his life, right, is to miss out a lot of the lessons that are in the Quran. And so which is why when you go to tafsir, I will mention a lot of the times the stories of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because they are connected, right? And the lessons come out from understanding how these verses are meant to be understood. Right. So he says, of the most important things in this religion is to teach the book of Allah and the beautiful and overflowing sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to also teach the laws of the Sharia. Right, so of the most important things in our religion now, it's become so we are so much in the end of times, right, that the teaching of the Quran has been neglected. The teaching and the focus on the Sunnah of Rasulullah has been neglected, right, by the masses. There are people who still hold on to it, but majority, right, is something that has been abandoned, right, and that is something that is of the signs of the end of time. The people will abandon the Quran and they will abandon the Sunnah, and then they won't follow the Sharia after that. Like, because if you abandon the Quran and Sunnah, the Sharia is like, you know, they will leave the Sharia also. So that's why he's saying, Habib saying, the most important thing, Quran, Sunnah, Sharia. You must teach the Sharia, the laws of Islam. Wa ahkam syariati al-mutahhara, right, and the rulings of the pure Sharia of Islam. Right? And from there you teach your children, you teach them, you know, that the Sharia is something that we uphold, that we, you know, we respect and we hold it very high in the Sharia. Right? And Aisha wanted to mention about the siwak. Try to not let them throw it on the floor. Right? So if they hold their siwak, right, keep it, you know, high. So we have the lanyard, so that it will not be chucked, right, or thrown on the floor. Right? So that it's always hanging on them in some way or other. Right? So, and also preferably, if any books that have like hadith inside or Quran, you know, even if it's children's books, try not to let it be on the floor. Right? So give them small tables, even if it's a small rihal, small table, something they will naikkan. I said all these things will be in the first maqsad. There are 4 maqasid of this book. There are 4 objectives of learning, and the first one is to ingrain in them the greatness and the awe of everything that Allah has made great. Right, so even small things, right? So like I saw Habib Omar's daughter, who was in my class when I was in Darul Zahra. Right, if she finds like a siwak on the floor, she'll pick it up. And for us, we'll just pick it up and put it on the table. But she will pick it up, kiss it, and then put it on the table. She actually kissed the siwak and she put it on the table. Like, so I saw her doing that lah. And it's from her upbringing lah, of her father, like, who taught her how to, you know, you aggrandize all these things. And Sheikh Hamza once mentioned that, you know, there was once whereby he was in a majlis with his teacher, right? And he remembers this, you know. He was in a majlis and he used his pencil, right, to clean his nails. You know how we use our pencil and you clean out your nails, you take out the dirt, right? And the teacher, like, who saw him doing that, right, and, you know, cleaning his nails with a pencil, the teacher took a small stone and threw it at him. And the teacher was like, Hamza, Allah swears by the pen. Right, Allah says, wal noon, wal qalami wa ma yasturun. Allah swears by the pen. So how can you take the pen and then use your pen to clean your nails? Right, it's no adab. You don't use the pen to clean nails. And ever since I was like, okay, the pen also, and the pen. Right, at least, you know, you don't just, you know, disregard, right, all these things. So knowledge, books, paper, things lah, you know, that has value. Teach them. Right, that we elevate these things, and it can seem difficult, especially when they're younger, you know, because they throw things around. Right, but you know, you keep at it. As they grow older, right, they will be very sensitive towards things being put on the floor. Right, they will not feel comfortable. Right, and Hababa Maryam once, she told me that her father, it's all the fathers teach their children. Right, the parents themselves really give them lessons. So she said that, you know, she wants her telekong, her kamis, and she took it off and she folded it, right, and it was on her bed. Right, and the father came and he was laying down somewhere else, you know, on the floor or something. Right, and he asked her, right, to give him like a bantal, like a pillow for him to rest his foot. So she couldn't find anything, so she took her kamis, her telekong, right, and she gave it to him. And he took it, he threw it back at her. He was like, this is what you use for prayer. You don't put it on your feet, right, nor do you put it, you know, in anywhere that is lesser. It's for your prayer. No, this thing is for your prayer. Right, so, you know, from there she remembered, okay, the telekong itself, don't throw on the floor. Right, don't just, you know, campak. Don't fold it up and then keep it properly. Somewhere that is elevated, somewhere that is kept. Right, don't disregard your prayer garment because you use it to face Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. And so it has to be nice. It has to be perfumed. So you teach them like perfume your telekong, perfume your songkok, perfume your things, right? And these are things of the prayer. So your sajadah, right, it has to be respected, you know, honoured, because it's your sajadah. So wherever you sujud on, right, all these things are respected, right, and honoured. Right. So the teaching of the rulings of Islam, they are pure. Right, so you bring the rules of Islam to be something that is pure and that is good from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. So Allah makes us pray. Right, it's of the greatest thing in your life that you can pray. Right, it's the most beautiful thing in your life. So you teach them, you tell them, right, that we honor the prayer. That Alhamdulillah, you can pray. Alhamdulillah, you know, there are people out there who don't pray. Right, but Allah let you pray. Right, it is a favor on you that you actually pray. Right, yeah. وَنَشَرَ الْقِيَمَ الْمَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ bainal ummah, right? And also this kind of circles of knowledge to teach, it is to spread, right, noble character, right, amongst the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So so we understand, and the only reason why our society is so far from this is because these halaqat, these circles of knowledge have stopped, right? They don't continue, right? Or they are very little, they're very few, right? They are not reaching the masses, right? All people stop coming, right? So there are the circles of knowledge, but the people stop coming, right? So he says here, right, and that watilka umurun تتحقق بعقد حلقات التعليم في مسارع ومنازل في مدن المسلمين وقراهم. And he says that, and to do this, right, to spread the knowledge of the Quran, to spread the knowledge of Sunnah, to spread the knowledge of the ahkam, the rules of Islam, right, to spread good character, it can only be realized, right, if these circles of knowledge, of teaching and learning, right, are established in the towns and the villages of the Muslims, right? Only then you can actually educate. You need to establish the circles of knowledge. That's what he's saying. Like fi mudin muslimin wa qurahum, right, in their towns and in their villages, right? So in their mosques and in their houses, right? So it's also of, we can make intention that the men, they have their halaqat in the mosque, right? They have the circles of knowledge in the mosque. For the woman, right, we need to also have our own circles within ourselves in the houses of other women, right? So if it's best if classes, right, could be from house to house, right? So, and Hababa Mariam, she used to do this. She used to go to someone's house and she will hold her class on fiqh, and we are her regular students, so we follow her wherever she goes. So she will go to someone's house, and the people of that house will invite their own family and relatives, their own saudara. So people who never come for class, who never come to learn, they will invite all of their cousins lah, aunties lah, whoever, their neighbours lah, to the house. Then they will bring an ustazah to come, Hababa Mariam, she will come, and then she will teach. So the people there, they'll be sitting around, right? They never come for class, but they will just be hearing all these things. And then they'll be asking questions there and then, like about fardu ain and whatsoever. And she will do this every week, twice a week. So she go to different houses, and the people of the house will invite their own family. So it could be that in 1 month, right, the people of the house will only hear the lesson one time, right? But that is something that will benefit them also, right? So it's like, it's actually good lah if I could try and start and do it. Whereby you house hop, you go from house to house, and then the people of your family, right, come to your house, right? So you invite your cousins to come over and whatsoever, right? And then the class happens. And from there also, I noticed that there are people in the house who want to follow up. They will actually ask Baba, like, do you do this often? Then she will say, yes, twice a week. Then she will give them my number, right? So that I will arrange the bus, right, to take whoever is interested to come to the particular house for that week. Right? So then we grow in number, right? Because sometimes you like, when you go for class and you're like, there's so much is being shared here. If only my cousin knew. If only my sister hears this. If only my, whoever your family like, you're thinking, my family, they need to hear this. And if they hear this, they confirm they will like it. But they're not hearing it. Right? So you're like, let's bring it to my house, and then invite them for a dinner or something, and then have them there. Right? And if they want to stay in here, they can stay in here. Right? That's one of the ways whereby, they get people, right, to actually attend. Right? Otherwise, a lot of people, they just like, they won't attend. They just stay at home. Right? And now like Mixler and like Spreaker, it's better. Right? Because now people who don't come for class, at least they can open up, at home, and they can tune in. Right? So then you reach more people, right, who can actually listen to the lesson. You can spread the knowledge of Islam, you can spread the knowledge of the Quran and the Hadith and so on. And that's the point. Right? That you don't want, you just keep it to a small circle. Right? You want it to go to as far as possible, to as many people as possible in this teaching. Right? And of course, when it comes to also for children, right, especially, a lot of parents, right, whether or not they are strongly practicing, or they are not, they are very concerned about their children. Right? They are concerned about their children. Right? So even when they are not really very strict, right, on themselves, they might be more strict on their children, right? Because they want their children to grow up better than themselves. Right? So and I noticed that is one of the very strong points when it comes to spreading Islam, because people are more concerned about their children, right, than themselves. They tend to be more concerned about their children than themselves. Right? And then he says, so in mosques and in cities. وعلى ذلك يترتب حفظ الملة الإسلامية وتوضيح سبلها وترسيخ قواعدها في قلوب المنتمين إليها. Right, so he says that only in this way, and only in this way, right, are we able to organize, right, or are we able to protect, right, the way of Islam, the millah of Islam, right, to protect the way of Islam amongst the Muslims. Only in education we need to teach them, and only in teaching them effectively that we can actually protect Islam amongst the Muslims, right, and to make clear for them the way, right, that is right, their way to Allah subhanahu, the way of Islam, right, and to completely engrave in their hearts, right, the rulings of Islam, right, and of those who hold on to Islam. وَتَرْتَفِعُ ظُلُمَاتِ الْجَهْلِ, right, and to remove the darkness of ignorance, of jahl, right, so to remove any form of ignorance, Muhammad وغفلات جهل وغفلات بنور العلم والذكر والتذكير, right, so to remove the darknesses of ignorance and of heedlessness, people who are not aware of all of these things, right, and you remove this by bringing in the light of knowledge, of remembrance, and of reminders, right, and we know that these things they matter, they really matter, to keep reminding the people, right, but we need to bring it to them, right, because, and one thing that Habib Umar also told me told us when we wanted to come back to Tarim, from Tarim to Singapore, right, he said that go to the people wherever they are, like don't bring them to you. Right, so for me, like, okay, I have done it twice in the week where Rubat they come to me, right, but he did say go to them, right, don't make them come to you, right, so because you are the one who's calling to Allah, you need to go out, right, and go to their houses, go to their homes, right, and speak to them, right, so okay lah, it's so I'm trying to make more effort lah to actually go and visit my relatives, my cousins, right, actually go to the houses, right, and then to stay in your own circle and be amongst yourselves. Right, that is not the point of Islam, right? So when when the Muslim society Nisa, the women, they came to me, the girls in NUS lah, right, and they asked me about what I would advise them on their activities, right, and on their circles or halaqah and all that, right, and I did tell them that you try your best, you need to look at those Muslims in NUS, right, who are not interested at all in Islam, those people, right, those people target, right, try to think of ways whereby you can attract them, or ways whereby you can get to them, right, because Rasulullah SAW, he was not concerned about those who were already in the mosque, right, he was concerned about those who are not in the mosque, right, who are not even bothered about coming into the mosque, those people, right, those are people that we are concerned about, right, so and we made our intentions that when we have our classes, that those who are not here, may they benefit, right, wherever they are, their souls will be receiving, right, all of these knowledges, right, that is being spread in the same land, right, so you make the intentions that you hadirkan, and this is the secret of hadirkan, you hadirkan all your family that you wish they are here, right, so you bring them into presence. Right, so whosoever lah in your family, you say, okay, I bring the presents, my cousin, my second cousin, my whosoever, right, all of them, right, are present here, so that their soul, wherever they are, gets the benefit, right, that the light will reach them, right, and inshallah, you will see things change and things happen, right, to them. That's all from niyat, all the strength of niyat, right. Where are we? فلازم الاعتناء بإقامة تلك الخلقات على وجهها على كل مسلم حريص على دين الله راغب في مرافقة حبيبه ومصطفاه وأهل دائرته من النبيين وورثته الأكرمين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. Right, so he says that, right, so then this, right, would be something that will be constantly held to by anyone, right, this kind of halakat, by anyone, right, who has anyone of the Muslims who guard over, right, the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, they have the highest concern for the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and they want and they have highest desires, right, to be in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the chosen one, and the members of his circle, the Sahaba, right, and all of the prophets all together, and those who inherit him, who are noble, right, and how blessed are they as a companion, correct, right? Do you know what I am? Okay. I'm translating it from the Arabic, so you pandai-pandai lah. Where am I reading? Alright. So that's the introduction, to show the importance of this matter. And this affair is so important, he's saying. It's so important that you start. Right? And the last maqsad, right, there are 4 maqasid, there's 4 objectives in this entire book. The last one, right, I mentioned last week also, is empowerment. And that's what I'm doing to you all also. Right? Whenever I teach you all also, I'm doing the empowerment part. Whereby you yourself, right, will be, beacons, right, of your own, of light, whereby you carry this knowledge, right, and you tell those who are around you. Right? And from there, things will spread, and people will, they will live better lives, and they will live healthier lives spiritually and physically. Right? When this reaches other people. Right. So, should we continue? It's 4 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to read. I think this part is a lot of it's factual, right? It's very factual. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read, right? Then okay, I'm just going to read. ولما كان الكثير من أهل ديننا الأقوم وشريعتنا المطهرة يرغبون في خدمة دين الله وينتهضون لنشر خير بين المسلمين ثم لا تتضح لهم وسائل الهدف والمقصود ومطلب المنشود ولا يدرون كيف يبدأون وكيف يتصرفون ويتعاملون اغتنمت فرصة اجتماع أعداد من كبار الطلاب من نواحي حضرموت واليمن وغيرها برباط المصطفى بشحري الذي أسسه الإمام العارف بالله الحاج عبد الله بن عبد الرحمن بن محمد بن شيخ أبي بكر بن سالم رحمه الله ونفعنا به. اغتنمت فرصة اجتماعهم بإجازة صيفية لعام 1416 هجريا يقابل العام 1995 مسيحية. وخصصت خصتين في الأسبوع لتعلم طرق التعليم وتبيين مقاصده وتوضيح وسائله. فلخصت المقاصد في 4 وألقيت عليهم رؤوس وسائل وطلبت منهم أن يواصلوا التفكير وكتابة فيما يناسب كل مقصد من الوسائل. وكنت أجمع ما كتبوا للملاحظات والتنبيه واقتطاف الخلاصة. فأحسن الكثير منكم الكتابة وأبدأ ملاحظات وتنتبه إلى وسائل مهمة. وهذه الخلاصة جمعناها لتكون تذكرة وبيانا ومنهجا لحلقات التعليم لدى أصحابنا وأحبابنا ومن رغب فيها. ونسأل الله أن ينفعنا بها ويجعل جمعها خالصا لوجهه الكريم وبالله التوفيق. Alright, so I don't have to explain this part, right? Because this part is basically he mentions how this book came about, right? So I'm just reading it for the blessings, for the barakah. right? So basically, he just said that after all that he has said about the importance of this kind of circles of knowledge, that he realizes that most people, right, many people, right, who have studied this religion, right, and they understand this religion, right, and they have a lot of desire, right, they have a lot of zeal and a lot of desire to spread this religion, right, they want to teach, they want to spread it, right, but they don't know how. They don't know how to go about teaching. They're not trained teachers. They don't know how do they deliver the message, right, from what they have learned, right. So Habib here says that that he, right, as a student, right, he managed to have courses, to have sessions whereby they go through, right, what is important exactly, right, in this kind of circles, right, and then his students and then they were told, right, to come up with as many ways as possible to achieve, right, what are the purposes of knowledge, right. So they came up with, and then he collected them, right, and he made it into a book, and this is the book that was revealed, right. So it's there in the English, he mentions that, right. So inshallah next week we will go into the Muqaddimah, which is the introduction of this book, right, and then soon after we will enter into the first aim, right, of sacred knowledge. All right, any questions? Okay kan? The English, is it clear? The English is clear. Okay, Wasallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الفاتحة. أن الله يرزقنا العلم النافع وعمل الخالص ويسكن ذلك رقاب نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم المعلمين ومشايخنا والكلنا على وإلى حضر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والحمد لله رب العالمين.